Asha. The next question is, what is the deeper meaning of mental illness?
Mental illness is really quite a complicated story, and there is no dogmatic answer to it. There's no this is what it means, because everybody's karma is individual. But here is the fundamental reality, fundamental understanding of mental illness itself. Um, there are basically three levels of consciousness, and their degrees of separation or union with the greater reality. Subconsciousness is our entirely subjective world. I'm using that word not exactly as psychologists use it, but in this context. Subconsciousness is our entirely subjective world. Subconsciousness can be sleep. So we go into sleep, you can have vivid dreams, you can have the people in your family doing all sorts of things with you, big experiences. But when you wake up, nobody has had that experience but you. It was a completely real experience, but nobody could share it. The nature of subconsciousness is that it's isolating. The superconscious mind, the opposite end of the spectrum, the three, is where we begin to understand that our separateness is an illusion. It's the fact that we live, if you put it like this, that we live at the tips of our fingers and we seem very separate from each other. But if you travel to the origin point, you realize that all of these fingers emanate from the same source. And so if we live at the tips, which is subconscious more, we might be able to see each other, but we still are isolated. If we come to our superconscious self, we see the how we're unified, and then we take that sense of unification down to the individuality. But then even in our individuality, we feel this sense of union, this compassionate understanding, and we have a shared perception of reality. We see how everything comes together and how all this separateness is an illusion. Now, the conscious mind, which is when we're basically awake, is the battleground between these two forces, between the feeling of acceptance of a reality that is not self-created, that is divinely existing, and subconscious is to retreat into the world that is just defined by me and is shared by no one else. Mental illness is a retreat from this greater reality into this limited reality. In this, it results in things like depression, despite external circumstances, paranoia, interpreting other people's actions in a certain way and insisting that this must be true. Now, bear in mind, the person who's in this state is actually having this experience. It's not like they're not having it, but they have focused their attention on a level of reality that does not connect with a greater reality. So there is a very understandable reason why people retreat into mental imbalance. And I talked to Swami Kriyananda at length about this at different times, and there's a point where you begin to wake up enough. You begin to sort of, your past lives accumulate. You've had enough experiences, and you begin to realize that there's no way out of human existence. There's no shortcut. There's no easy way. There's no guarantee of the happy ending. There's no promise that you'll never be hurt. That the only possible solution for this desire for happiness is to transform one's consciousness and to become master of one's own responses and to be able to act in relationship to this greater reality. That is a terrifying realization, especially at the very beginning, because how am I going to do that? I want an easier way out. No, this can't be true. And we retreat. We just look for an alternative, or we just hide from the tremendous responsibility of awakening into God realization. Swami Kriyananda went so far as to say that mental imbalance is an inevitable stage on the spiritual path, which is I'm just going to see if I can just create my own world, and then I just don't have to deal with any of this anymore. I just go like this. Now, bear in mind, often this is a terrible experience, but the terribleness of this experience at a certain stage still feels preferable to actually facing the enormous task of self-realization. And so we experiment. The one of the many principles of the spiritual path is that you have to learn for yourself. You can't have somebody just tell you. You have to have the experience. And for many people, mental imbalance is just something you have to go through until you have the courage to go past it. And then it becomes a habit. And then you have all these vortices in your chakras that gradually have to be overcome. I'm not being flippant about any of this. This is very challenging. But at a certain point, and it's a divine mystery, but at a certain point in your incarnations, you've experimented enough and you're ready to go forward. And you've tried it all. And mental imbalance is one of those things you try.
Thank you, Asha.